do not feel constrained by the tech. The moment that, we can free ourselves from those boundaries, then we can really go wild.
So the folks here at Avalanche Studios have developed their biggest game engine yet, called the Apex. It can handle pretty much anything that you want to throw at it. Crazy physics, dynamic weather patterns, brand new terrain, you name it, it covers it, it handles it all at the same time. It will literally blow your mind, and I got a chance to sit down with the folks here in order to find out how it all works.
Well, it's called the Apex engine, and it's named from the fact that Apex is the pinnacle or peak. And Avalanches many times start at that point, but that's also where we want to be with our technologies at the top.
You would definitely not be able to make this game without the Apex engine.
We want to provide stunning landscapes, extreme weather simulation, enhanced physics, crazy gameplay opportunities. We put those things all together, and we felt it was best for us to create something from scratch that we have all our experience making.
15 years of working with the Just Cause series has led up to this moment where the world is bigger, brighter and more beautiful than ever. The weather system, the environment, it would not be possible without this incredible engine.
We basically never heard the word no. And that was a really big deal for us. It really unlocked our creativity there. So it allowed us to really go big in a way that we'd never could before.
It's really about, okay, now we have this extra space to work. Now we have this extra muscle to kind of put behind our features and put behind the game itself. We're not looking to reinvent the wheel. What we want to do is turn, the bicycle wheel into a monster truck wheel.
They will have the tornadoes and sandstorm and blizzards and everything right in their face, so they can't miss it.
We wanted something that could really push our Apex engine to its limits.
The entire experience will be much smoother than before. What we use in Just Cause 4 is a highly specialized version with all the extra weather effects and everything.
The whole engine has been basically rebuilt from the ground up.
It's a proper world-building tool.
The engine is the vehicle that allows us to make the game. If I was going to put a beating heart on anything, I would say it would be the developers. With not only their ideas, but their ability to execute them.
It incorporates things like artificial intelligence, dynamic spawning. Our rendering system is best in class when it comes to beautiful topographical landscapes. It really is amazing to see and kind of a pleasure to be involved in.
A big thing about Just Cause it's physics and destruction.
I mean, for me, it's all destruction.
It's all destruction.
That's all I want to do the whole time is like, what can I string together to get the biggest explosion?
Oh really? Oh my god, so Just Cause 4 will make you terribly happy.
It's all about enhanced destruction, stunning visuals, extreme weather, all these things that we couldn't do before.
The new Apex engine has given us opportunity to work with terrain in a way that we haven't been able to do before.
In terms of sculpting the world, the Apex engine was built from the ground up with this idea that we wanted to create massive, huge creative worlds. We also knew that we were making Just Cause, so everything that we have in terms of our tool set is unique because it all comes from the Apex engine, and it is all designed around making it the best possible world for Just Cause. The embodiment of Rico is the grappling hook.
It's hard to imagine one without the other at this point.
The grappling hook is back.
Our design team did wonders with it. I didn't think that it would have been possible to step that up and in such a clever and deep way, but we managed to do that.
Not only can it still do the same wonderful destruction as you had in previous titles, it also has now new abilities, new options, it's fully customizable. I cannot wait to get my hands on that grappling hook.
The Grapple Hook was actually somebody's lunch project back in Just Cause 1 that then became the core feature of the franchise.
We look at the grappling hook as the ultimate sandbox tool, so it was really important to us to make sure that we can have a lot or all of the most amazing experiences that you had in Just Cause 3, but amplified. So we brought back the boosters, we brought back Retract, we added the airlifter.
You can mess with the tension and the speed at which it retracts, or does it auto-retract, or do you want to attach airlift devices to objects to move them up into the air? The more we could give to the players there, the more we were confident that they were going to come back with creative things we never even thought of. It's very important to us to kind of begin to approach this in a modular way, giving more and more options to the player. We saw what players were able to do with the existing tool set, so a major objective as we went into this was to give them more tools.
The player can lift something, pull something, or retract something at the push of a button or by holding a button. It's fully customized. They can do whatever they want with it. And then the possibilities, the options, the kind of chaos you can create, the creativity in the tool set. It's just there for the player.
The grappling hook is not just a tool anymore. It's become such a big and important part of Rico that it really deserves that functionality.
You can use this attachment in different combinations, but then within each one of them there are a set of variable of parameters that you can modulate. Our design director Joe presented me with the total number of combination you can have. It's bigger than my brain can count. So
I can guarantee that within 10 hours of playing the game, that no two players will have exactly the same combination.
So the more layers of utility and complexity that we can put there, the more the player can do with Rico and the world around him. And the way we look at it is these are more toys in the sandbox. You can never have a sandbox with too many toys in it.
Over here, we've got our rendering team, so they're a big part of that. Our visual effects team is over here. Back end, sound, and then the gameplay, content to sort of make everything work together.
So even before we started working on Just Cause 4, we did like to refer to Rico as a force of nature.
What's the one thing that can go up against a force of nature? It's another force of nature.
Nature is probably the biggest friend and biggest enemy can have.
It just sort of changes the game. He can't fight it with bullets. He can't fight it with explosions.
It completely changes how the enemies and the AI have to react to it. It completely changes how a helicopter can fly through it.
So here you go, tornadoes, sandstorms, torrential rain.
These are all things that the Just Cause 3's Avalanche engine, it just couldn't do.
Taking that functionality around weather, the entire gameplay around it is something that I dreamt of for over a decade.
How do you code for something like that?
Well, we look at real-world events
Yeah.
and look at the aerodynamics of objects, and we actually compute them and try to figure out how can we make it look realistic, but also still be fun.
We actually have a proper simulation system that takes into account humidity, wind currents, air pressure, and this is reflected in the shape of the clouds, that this time around are real clouds. They have a volume.
So you can actually feel like you're touching them and going right through these particles of clouds.
We have the tornado. When that goes through space, it's just decimating anything in its path, from huge bridges to incredible glass domes.
The lightning, it actually finds the highest point or the highest thing in there and will strike it.
So that if you're just doing swinging around, they may hinder you. But
If you strategically glide around and make sure those lightning strikes actually hit your enemies, then you are playing Just Cause 4.
A big portion of some of our research and study is to figure out how to not only make it look good just being a rainstorm, but how to actually form a rainstorm.
We're not talking about set-piece scripted events that occur like in a boss fight or something. This is in the world. When they interact with it is completely systemic, just like anything else. It works with the physics, it works with the tool set of Rico.
And even when a tornado forms, it actually forms around the clouds and connects with the clouds.
And can you see that from the distance, or is it more along the lines of it suddenly appears?
You can see as far as you can, which is in our game is almost infinite. Really cool to say, oh, there's a tornado there. I want to go there, which is, we give you full control.
once you learn how they work, you can use them, for example, by throwing a black-hand vehicle up into the sky and then enjoy aligning and strike it.
Use your customizable grapple hook to attach an airlifter to an enemy and then watch them float up in the air.
You could even kind of surf the tornado itself.
And the point is that it's not just about visuals, it's not just about atmosphere.
Extreme weather for Just Cause 4 is not just a new fun thing for the player to play with.
This is not the first time anyone's ever seen a tornado in a video game. This is the first time that you could open a wingsuit and fly into a tornado. Rico's never gonna quite feel totally vulnerable. He is the strongest, most amazing action hero out there, but this time in Just Cause 4, he has met his match.
What we set ourselves out to do was to ground the game a little bit more, and Rico is obviously a big part of that. So for this time around, what we wanted to do was make him a little bit more believable.
In the past has been sort of an avatar that the player embodies and then does whatever they want. But in a modern setting, in modern times, characters need to have more depth, more complexity.
So we've been able to see a little bit more of Rico, this new chapter of his life, what's going on, what are his motivations. He's looking a little rough around the edges, so we're here to find out what is going on with Rico and why is he here in the world of Solis.
We continually want to make Rico more human. He's not just a Terminator android that runs around doing whatever he wants without consequence.
The wingsuit for this time around has been much more realistic. How it works both with Rico, but how it reacts to wind and the world in general.
Rico surrounds himself with a cast of characters that are a reflection of parts of Rico that are missing. We all knew we wanted to bring back the badass.
We like to talk about Rico as the ultimate action hero. We like to talk about as a force of nature.
We can't go backwards and all of a sudden decide that bullets and rockets are Rico's weakness. But extreme weather, that sort of changes the game for Rico. That's something he can't necessarily shoot. That's not something he can necessarily blow up. It's something he has to work with others to deal with.
Rico is kind of a human tornado in and of himself. So what happens when he runs up against a real tornado?
Yeah, usually where Rico goes, there's chaos. Having like tornadoes and hurricanes fit perfectly well into that, adding more chaos.
We have thrown quite a lot at him this time around, but it's he hasn't had enough.
Rico doesn't feel like this cardboard cutout of a character anymore. Like, he doesn't feel like just your mid-30s action hero.
When you look at sort of the action hero pantheon, I think the coolest thing that you can possibly do is see them kind of fall on their ass or get their ass kicked at least once or twice.
At the end of the day, he's still an action hero. There's definitely an archetype inherently within that. But we want him to be his own guy. We want Rico Rodriguez to be distinguishable from kind of the field of action heroes.
So it's very easy to sit with an art director or a lead character artist and say, this is what I'm feeling, makes sense. And when you hear them come back to you with, yeah, we're on the same page.
All the fantasies and all the stuff that you can't really do yourself, you can always put that on Rico and allow him to do that. Yeah, you know, Rico's presented with an enemy that just on the sheer level of force is greater than he could ever be. But he's still rocking a leather jacket in the jungle, so he's still that guy that you kind of enjoy playing as and you know, taking on the world with.
This time around, we want players to really care about this world, really feel like they understand this world, and they really are get drawn into it.
At any one moment, in any particular direction, the player can see something they haven't seen before and go to it and explore it.
In Just Cause 4, we enter into the beautiful South American world of Solis. Vertical environments, gorgeous, diverse biomes. This is one world we cannot wait to explore.
It's taking everything that we found interesting and amazing about South America as a whole continent and cherry-picking those bits and pieces and putting it together as a big world.
It's a bit of a hybrid of a lot of different countries. We didn't want to just pick one and emulate it.
We actually were able to take a trip to Peru just to capture the sounds of the different biomes there.
How do you write a history for a fictional place?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question.
Okay, let's start from the narrative, okay? Who lives here? Who does these people do? And then from there, we build the pieces and we make the town.
Where the game starts is not where the history of the island starts. We went back to 500 years to try to create a historical context for the island that makes sense once you arrive there.
Say in the grasslands, that will be composed of more contemporary buildings, where if you go up to the rainforest, where the original settlers came in, those buildings tend to be more of a colonial style.
We developed river technology for it, meaning that river now have currents, and currents change dynamically.
So we have 4 biomes or regions in Just Cause 4. But within each of those, there's between 2 to 4 different sub-biomes. And it's a way for us to add variety in a very big landscape.
Just Cause is a vertical game. We always want to stress the verticality. We always want to bring that in. We want the game to be fully 3-dimensional.
We've gone from talking about square kilometers to cubic kilometers, which is fantastic.
In JC3, we mainly sculpted a lot of it by hand. This time around, we want to take that with us. It's still an important step, but we introduced scan data that we can take in, lift it into the engine, and then move it around and reshape it how we want to.
It's not top-down projected map, it's hollow. You have caves, you have cave systems, you have tunnels, so it's more than meets the eye at first glance.
So if you take one of our beautiful locations, it's called El Abismo, it's sort of a slum bridge juxtaposed with favelas that you might see from Rio de Janeiro in South America. These two things are combined in a vertical space.
We actually have a credo at Avalanche. If you can see it, you can go there. If you poke it, it reacts. And that really goes through in everything we do, and particularly so in Just Cause 4.
So one of the phrases that we like to say is a world that Just Cause deserves. But the world that Just Cause deserves, one of the things that we really wanted to do was create a playground that feels relatable. So that no matter how long you play this game, you're always going to see something new.